Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. I'm filming between the heavy rain. It's raining, but it's not doing what it was doing just now, which meant I couldn't film, it was just too loud. And that may be back, I'll just have to carry on. I've started, so I'll finish, as they say. Now it dawned on me that my Cymbidiums are all back inside now, and they don't lend themselves to being watered with the other plants. You know, much bigger pots, they hold a lot more when you water them if they're quite dry. So they don't lend themselves to being done with the others, so I've just decided I will always do them as a separate run. So I'll mix up feed and everything and water them as a completely separate thing. The reason for that is not only what, but how. Well, the what, because people are always interested in such things, in there is the mix, and that is RO water to start with. I keep my smaller containers lined up touching the radiator inside. It's the time of year where I've got the heating on first thing in the mornings now. Make sure that water is room temperature or above, because obviously it's going to come out here where it's colder and go into cold glass and everything. So it's not freezing cold water, it's, you know, sort of ambient temperature. And then that had, in this case, I was aiming for around 300 parts per million. So I put MSU in, that took it up to 270 parts per million. And then I added calcium nitrate up to 315 parts per million. So from 70 to 315, yeah, 45 parts per million of calcium nitrate. Now that gives a nitrogen boost. Two reasons. The plants have been outside, they had the hose put on them, they've been rained on, we had quite a wet July, they were out in that, you know. So in theory, although they all got repotted this year, the bark can't be classed as brand new because it's had a lot of water go through it and it's had periods where it will have stayed wet, yeah? So it's not brand new. Once bark gets older, it starts to break down naturally. The process, the decay, uses nitrogen, yeah? So the calcium nitrate is to boost the nitrogen so that there's excess in there to allow for the media to take some out, leaving a reasonable amount for the plants. If you're going to add nitrogen into plants, you are potentially adding in the facility to grow, but to perhaps grow a little bit excessively and produce weak growth. Volume, but floppy, yeah? So leaves bend over instead of staying upright, that sort of thing. The calcium backs that nitrogen up, so that's what calcium nitrate does. It adds in the calcium and the nitrogen together, so they work together. And then that came out at quite a low pH, and I use this to raise my pH. That, I suppose I better show you. I'm not promoting the brand, it's what it is, not who makes it. I don't give a monkeys who makes it. There's various brands on the market, but it's basically potassium silicate. And so it does add potassium in. I could do without that, I'd rather not. But nonetheless, that's the only thing I've found that does very little to the TDS, the actual parts per million, but dramatically alters the pH. The pH with this feed was about 5.6, 5.7. 3 drips of that in that volume of water took it up to 6.4. Another drip would have probably taken it up to 6.8, which would have then been, I'd have classed that as too high. So there's a really attractive cat outside on the shed. That's a new one on me. Turn my camera around. I don't know whether you can see that. That's a new cat. I haven't seen that one before. Mojo would not be happy, obviously. He's got a bell and he's got a collar. I don't know whether he's a timid cat or not. I'm just going to find out by opening the door, because I don't want cats thinking this is a nice place to be. I opened the door, he was off like a shot. I got a feeling he belongs to the new people over there. Yeah? Because that place has been empty since I moved in. And recently somebody's moved in there. There was a lot of work going on, stuff being carried in and out, but it seemed to have settled down now. And I have seen a cat on their bedroom windowsill sitting in the sun, so they do have a cat, and maybe that's the one, because I haven't seen that one before. Lovely little cat. But I'd rather not have other cats in this garden, it upsets Mojo. Right, so that's what's in it. Now I'm going to drop the camera down so that you can see what's going on. Do I need to? Yes. And then I'll show you what. That's the what and the why. And now we'll actually do the work. So one at a time, these will be brought out, tray taken off and stood in an empty container. At this point in time, I will be removing weeds if I see any. Okay, now this pot is not soaking wet, but it's damp. And then the idea is we water the pot into here. So we pour the water through, the same as I would do for all my plants. Yeah? The difference is from now on, these will be getting orchid feed, whereas before, that's what I was hoping to see, the fact that I've put enough in that it goes through. And then we let it drain, and they'll be getting orchid feed, as opposed to what they had outside was pelleted, was actually bonsai feed. So it was basically a 555 NPK of 555. It's said with extra nutrients, but undefined, so it didn't say what micronutrients or anything were in there. So these Cymbidiums might not have been getting a good supply of all the micronutrients, and it certainly didn't say that it had calcium and magnesium in it, so they might have been short on that as well. They would have got some from the rainwater and some, believe it or not, from the hose, but unknown amounts. That's the problem. So we now know what they're getting. Nice spike growing on that one. So this is the idea. Gives me a chance to have a look at them. And as I said, see now this pot is heavy, but that doesn't mean to say it's wet through, because it's a big plant. There's weight to plants that are this size, you know, with bulbs this big. Yeah? So again, new growths, spike, another new growth round here. So this is inactive growth. Yeah? The last one we looked at, the only active growth really was the spike, and science would tell you, plant science I mean, that to encourage blooming and things like that, you don't need nitrogen. Yeah? But I look at it like this. Orchids are not ordinary plants, and they don't get differentiation. In the wild they get what nature throws at them, basically, and what washes down from the trees. So first of all, very little. Cymbidiums slightly differently, because a fair few of those are actually terrestrials, so they would act like normal plants in the ground. Yeah, but when you've got hybrids, you're never quite sure what's in them. So there's just some white marks on here, which is it's from the nursery, some sort of residual spray. It's not bugs. Oh hello, my cat's out here now. You want to go out between the rain? Make the most of it, because he won't go out if it's absolutely chucking it down. He will go out in rain if he needs to, so to speak. So anyway, this is the principle. There is a high nitrogen feed going in here because there is growth, and I'm of the view that okay, you are just to a different base of fertiliser to encourage fruiting, like in tomatoes, cut the nitrogen out, boost other stuff, yeah, to encourage the fruit. Well, that's to grow the fruit. We're not growing fruit and berries and things on orchids, we're growing spikes and buds. The spike on a Cymbidium is growth. It's green stuff, needs nitrogen, in my humble opinion. So I don't change the type of feed that my orchids get, ever. What I do change is the amount and the frequency. I don't change the feed. I adjust the balance, that's what the calcium nitrate was for. Yeah? So I didn't actually use MSU on its own because I put the calcium nitrate in. Sometimes I would put CalMag in on top of the MSU. So that boosts the magnesium as well as the calcium. Chucks a bit of iron in and a tiny bit of nitrogen. So yeah, again, a different mix. Yeah? And we're coming into the winter now, so my normal watering is not going to get additives, it's just going to get MSU at much lower doses, less frequently, and the watering itself is less frequent because most of the growth will be either slowing down or stopping. These are still in active growth. These are still at it. Again with this one, we've got new growths pushing up to maturity and some weeds. I will gradually get the weeds as they sort of push forward. Right, so yet again, you notice I'm pouring this through. There will come a time when I run out, at which point I will pour that in there and start using it again. Now at the moment, the Cymbidiums have a bit of a luxury because they get non-reused water until this runs out, and then they'll get reused depending on whether I've finished watering or not. But these are actually getting straight water without it having been through another pot. I'm quite pleased with these. You know, this is my first year I can safely say that I've grown Cymbidiums. You know, I have more than one. So it's the first year that I've had to sort of think about them to a greater extent than I ever have before. So I do have a few now. And the last one from down here. This one's got some yellow leaves on it. Let's have a look at that and see if they are old leaves or is there a problem. So we'll stand it in there to start with and we'll have a look. Why have we got yellow leaves? Well, they're all on old bulbs for a start, and that one's already off. You coming in? Come on then. Need all the chat. No, we don't. Answering back all the time. Right, so these are old leaves on old bulbs. That one was already loose, even though I got the scissors in my hand. That was just the threat of the scissors and it fell off. That one, oh, that one fell off as well. And this one is half green and half yellow, so it can come off now. The difference it makes. Suddenly it looks like a nice big healthy plant. It's no healthier now than it was before. Always keeping my eye out in leaf joints for those little snails. I mean, so far on the Cymbidiums I've found one snail. That doesn't mean that was the only one. It's just the only one I've found so far. Right, so this one is a mass of new growths. No spikes on here yet. This was a late bloomer last year, so wouldn't be expecting it to spike yet. If it spikes on all of these new growths, that's going to be quite a show. But it's a nice strong plants with a nice number of new growths, and the old bulbs are nice and plump, not all shriveled up, so it's a nice healthy plant. So it's perfectly capable of producing a nice lot of spikes. So that's that one. Right, so now we're virtually out of water. I've got 2 to go. One of them's the new one, which I've yet to water. And it's sticking right out the top of the pot, so it's going to be almost impossible to water. I'm just going to frighten the life out of myself, see what the TDS has gone up to. Well, it actually says this is not possible. It actually says 280, so it's gone down. That's not possible. Anyway, no dramatic increase, that's the important thing. Yes, because there's hardly any left there. So what we're going to do now is put that back in there. So at this point we are reusing water, and next time I do this I'll make sure I don't reuse water on the same 2. So next time we'll start with those 2 rather than end with them. Now this is a biggie, and the pot is absolutely full, and I can see a snail. So we get that in there. That's heavy as well. And I put that back wrong, that should be flat. There we go, right, let me get that snail before I do anything else. That's one less. So that's 2 so far. That was again one of those little bush snails. Right, we've got a dead leaf here, just the one, and that comes off an old bulb. So we'll take that. That's if I can get in there, it's right in the middle. The base of it is right in the middle. There we go, and then there's another one up here, which in fact is on the same bulb, so it's on a very old bulb. There we go, that's those 2. And there's a couple of smaller ones down the base of bulbs. This is just to tidy them up. They've been outside all year, you know, they've been battered by the rain and the wind, hail, you know, all that sort of stuff. So I'm just making them look tidy. There's another old leaf there. Take that one off. And then we've got another yellowing one. It's not yellow yet, but it will be soon. And this is often the case. It's the leaf, the lowest leaf on the bulb, and the bulb pushed through it and split it, so it ended up not being able to sort of get its nutrients through. Now this pot is full. I'm just going to have a look at the label because I want to know why. This is a hybrid yellow. So this is me. I did this because I've repotted this, and I've either over potted it, or it's gone mad in the roots and pushed the plant up, bringing the media with it. But when I water this, a lot of the bark is going to fall off. It's going to get washed off, and I'm going to let it, because otherwise it's only going to happen every time. Every time I water it, bark's going to fall off. Well, if you let it fall off, it'll establish a level that it can cope with. So although there's an awful lot of bark coming off, there won't be anywhere near as much next time. And time after that, there probably won't even be any. But this is a huge pot. Right, so that took most of the water to do that pot. It's so big. But this is I would say this is my biggest Cymbidium volume-wise, width, you know, the area it takes up in the pot, which is why it's in such a big pot, which I would probably call a bucket rather than a pot, because it's big. and it is the biggest one by far. However, the next one that we're going to do, which is the newest one, is taller, but it's upright. And I hope it's going to stay like that, because it looks, you know, the spikes have been, what have we got on this one? And I forgot to say. We've got spikes and we've got a couple of maturing growths that have not spiked yet. So that could be a combination of both there. There could be growth going on still on some of the bulbs, and there are spikes being produced, which, as I said, if you look at the makeup of a Cymbidium spike, okay, when you get to the buds, you've got buds and blooms. That's the same as virtually all orchids, isn't it? Yeah, tiny little short bit with a flower on the end. The spike itself is quite a major structure. That's nitrogen. Right, let's get this one on the floor. And then we've got one more. The miniature one, I'm not watering, it's still wet. It doesn't use up the water anywhere near as quick. It didn't have that good a root system. I'm not sure it's grown a very good root system this year, so I'm keeping that one on the drier side at the moment to see what happens, basically. Right, that's that one. See what I mean about all the bark? It doesn't matter, you know. If some of that bark gets poured onto the next plant, it's not a big deal, but there won't be anywhere for it to go, because the next plant is, the pot is overfull as well. And I suspect this one has been pushed up a bit by life, the universe and things. But this one hasn't been repotted yet. This is in a cocoa fibre type thing. Yeah? So it's not in bark at all. There might be some bark mixed in, but I can't tell. And in full bloom, no new growths. So you could say, apart from the buds that are opening, so there's still some work by the plant to push those buds out. Oh, I've just seen a bud that's going over, so we'll take that off. Yes, there's no real growth going on this plant. So this feed is a bit over the top for this plant. It doesn't need it, yeah, because it's not growing. All it's doing is maintaining what it's got. So bit of a different principle with this one. Bark going all over the place. Nothing I'm worried. So I'll make sure what I need to do is get it picked up. I just wanted to make sure that that water has gone down into the pot enough to drain out the bottom. Yeah, which it has. So you can go straight back over where you live. Make sure on the blooming table. Right, so that's it. That's how I'm going to deal with my Cymbidiums. It is a little wasteful, but next time I water them, I'll have a better idea of how much water to use, if you see what I mean. These will not get a full strength feed next time round. What they will probably get next time is a half strength feed, then a flush. And I may repeat that sort of process. You have to bear in mind, when you put a high level feed in the type of mix we use for our orchids, yeah, the plant doesn't use all of it, and it's drying all the time. So there comes a point where it's dried enough that you think, I'll have to water that again. There's residual feed in that media. So if you just poured clean water through that media, you would effectively reactivate that feed, that's the residual feed that's in that media. So what you thought was a flush wasn't. Unless you really pour loads and loads of water through, come back an hour later and do it again. Then you've probably flushed it all out, because you've reactivated it by watering it. So it's now dissolved in the wetness that you created. Leave it an hour or two, water it again, you have flushed it out. I can't afford that amount of water. I've never needed to in the past, I'm not starting now. So there we go. That's how I'm going to deal with the Cymbidiums. I've got them now, so I have to incorporate them into how I work in here through the winter. I've got to keep these spikes growing on, get them staked at the right point in time, because some of them may well try and shoot out from the plant. They will take up too much space and not look as good as they would nice and upright with the blooms coming out the top of the foliage. So they do need to be staked. If you try and stake them too early, you can damage the buds, because the buds aren't far enough up the spike yet. Yeah? And if you leave it too late and it's out here, when you try and straighten it up to stake it, they can snap. And that's probably the worst sound you'll ever hear, when you've got a really good spike with loads of big buds on and you try and bend it up and it snaps off near the base. Not nice at all. So there we go, that's that. I still have some clips left over from the weekend at Burnham's, which is basically the Pretty Blooms Must Have clips. It's the clips of Burnham's sales area, not the nursery. Because basically the nursery this time of year is a sea of green. There's not much in flower at all. So it's the bought in stuff, and some of Sarah's stuff, some of the splits and everything. But so there's those clips still to go. And on my radar at the moment is that giant phalaenopsis that came from my son Tony, that's finished blooming, that's in a glass jar, that I need to get out of the glass jar. Now if it's going to be friendly to me, it'll come out of the glass jar without too much root damage. I doubt if it will, which means I'm going to have to break the glass. So that will be a one-off event, because I wouldn't ever have an orchid in a glass jar under normal circumstances. What on earth possessed him to do that, I don't know. It certainly wasn't my advice, that's for sure. Anyway, Cymbidium stuff. As I said, I'm pleased. I'm pleased a lot with my Cymbidiums. There is one I haven't watered here, which would always be left till last, which is the one that may have a virus. Still yet undetermined, because a very long-term experienced Cymbidium grower reckoned that it was the poor root system, the repot, and the change of environment, putting it outside, all that sort of stuff. It's one that moved house with me. It's had too much stress in its life, basically, and it's you know, responding accordingly. But viruses can live in plants, I won't say happily, but the plant doesn't go downhill at any great rate. It hangs in there until such times as extreme stress, when that's it. It can, you know, get going and finish the plant off. So I'm still keeping it separate. It'll always get watered separate. And we'll see what the new growth does next year. But in the meantime, I've got Cymbidiums that come into bloom will go on the black tables. Those that aren't in bloom go on this lower shelf right next to the glass, so they're in good light and everything. And that one, the odd one, just sits on the floor at the moment, because I haven't got anywhere else I can put it where it doesn't touch anything. In fact, I've just seen somewhere where it can go, just to get it off the floor and stop me kicking it. Anyway, so yes, I suppose I have to admit I am now a Cymbidium grower, and at the moment I seem to be doing quite well with them. So yet again, something that I didn't expect to do very well seems to be working well. Haphiopedilums, rubbish in the other place. I ended up selling them, getting rid of them, because they just didn't do very well at all. And I had quite a few at one time. Some quite nice hybrids in amongst there as well. They're all gone. They all went, and now I've started getting some back in, because they seem to be growing well. Yeah. Masdevallias, I used to manage to keep them for a year or two, and then they died. They now are growing well. Yeah. So the type of orchids I keep is slowly but surely changing, with more emphasis on ones that seem to do well here. The Oncidium types didn't do bad at the other place. They're doing okay here, so they haven't changed much. Yeah. The Cattleyas did pretty well at the other place until I messed up the bleach treatment. That took a lot of them down and lost them. The ones that have come here seem to be hanging in there. I won't say they're doing well, but you know, they're putting up with the lower temperatures and not dying. The dendrobiums that are left here seem to be hanging in there, but there are still some suspect ones that may not make it through this winter. That remains to be seen. Those that are up the cooler end, temperature wise, should pick up, yeah, even though some of them are slow to react to the more suitable environment. They've still got to recover from what wasn't good to them. So that's how we are. The lights are getting used now every day. Even the 2 days, the show on Saturday and Burnham's visit on Sunday, I got back in time to still use the lights. It's basically, the cut-off point is probably about 5:30 at the moment. That's going to all change at the end of the month because the clocks change. But at the moment, if I don't get the lights on by like 5:30, 5:45, it's too dark for them to go on, because the plants will have already reacted to the end of day. They'd have started their end of day, you know, processes. So putting the lights on would mess that up. So the lights need to go on early enough that the light is still good enough for the plants to think it's daytime. It's not going on to night yet. And then, because it's not properly light till 8 o'clock in the morning, the lights stay on till 8 o'clock at night. Yeah? So I'm maintaining a 12-hour day. Now obviously when the clocks change, you know, it'll be light at 7 o'clock in the morning instead of 8 o'clock, and the lights will go on at like 4:30. So everything will change. But the amount, the day length doesn't change. It's only the physical clocks in the country that change. Nothing changes in nature. It all stays the same. But slowly but surely those days are getting shorter and shorter. The time that the lights come on will get earlier each day, and if the light changes at the start of the day, which it will, I'll have to accommodate that. So instead of only going on from say 5:30 till 8 o'clock, they might have to go on relatively 4:30 till 8 o'clock to make up for the bit lost in the morning as well as the extra lost in the evening. So it'll be a constant adjustment until such time as I decide the plants are going to be allowed to do winter. In other words, no lights. They get the shorter days, or take the lights down to sort of 10.5, 11 hours. And then we will induce spring. Once we get out next year into February, towards the end of February, I will be firing up the intensity and the day lengths to force these into growth. And some of them might not have even stopped growing. Well, tough. They don't get a winter rest then. They just get forced to grow, get roots, get new growths, and become stronger, healthier plants. Because some of the dendrobiums, if they don't do that, they're just going to end up as weak plants into the next season as well, which I don't want. So there we go, that'll do for today. What's today? Wednesday. Tomorrow may well be the breaking glass ceremony, if I have to break it. Friday's obviously Project Orchid's day. That'll be orchid number 3 this time, whatever that is. Saturday I haven't made my mind up yet, and then Sunday we're back to the normal Sunday chat on a Sunday. First time for a while. Get back to some sort of normality. And that'll only be for 1 week, because the following weekend Hannah's down. That'll be like probably a gardening weekend, autumn tidy up. But it means there won't be a Sunday chat again. I'll do it on Monday. After that we get back to some sort of normality, and then it's Christmas. That comes round quicker than you might like. Anyway, see you next time. Thanks for dropping by. Thanks for supporting the channel and everything, and yeah, good stuff.